Live from New York. This is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. My name is Stephen Harvey will join us in just a couple minutes. Special guest, big time show this time. Longtime friend. Had him on a couple months ago. We talked some Giants before the season started. Famous quote, capped the Giants season at 5-13. It was much worse than that, as always. I'm proud to be joined alongside a long-time friend of mine, Nick Santelli. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back.
It's good to have you back. Yeah, no.
In a little while.
We teased this last time you were on the show. We talked about a special debate that we were going to do. I teased it. We're going to finally do it. I did this about, I want to say, 6 years ago when the show first started. The show used to be called Fast Break. Beautiful start. 200 views. No subscribers. It's time now. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But let's start with this one because you've been a huge Josh Allen fan for a number of years now, and that's the game I want to start with. So the Buffalo Bills did take down the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. A lot of controversy with a bunch of drops and the fumbles and the two-point conversions they went for. It was a complete mess. Lamar Jackson took accountability. John Harbaugh defended Mark Andrews, says he's a hell of a player. Lamar had nearly 300 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers. Josh Allen, numbers-wise, didn't really do much. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns. So my question to you, Nick, is really, what was your reaction to the game, and what's your opinion? Did the Bills win this, or did the Ravens lose it?
So, I really think that their performance was okay. I didn't like the play calling in the second half. There's a lot of screens, a lot of forced screens. Like, I feel like someone watching can see it coming from a mile away, so that just means that the defensive coordinator could obviously see what they're coming. Their play calls, like I said, not that great. I don't know, honestly. I think really the Bills won because I really do believe that even if he did catch that ball, they had, a minute 30 and 2 timeouts. They've been driving down the field the entire game. I feel like Josh Allen easy could have at least got them in field goal range. And especially with Lamar Jackson's, spotty playoff record, I feel like overall the Bills just kind of dominated that game.
I would say that I'm going to bring it up here for our viewers because I do think it's important. I'll start with this. I think that the key part of this is we've always seen Lamar Jackson in the playoffs struggle. And half his playoff games, he has multiple turnovers. I want to play these clips for you. I mean, this is a bad interception. He's not even open at all. Not a single time was that Rashad Bateman he targeted yet. He wasn't open. Some say he ran the wrong route, whatever the case may be. This is a bad thrown ball, great play, great interception. And this fumble. I don't know how the hell you fumble it. It has to be snowy conditions, slippery ball, because Lamar Jackson shouldn't have fumbled that football and nearly got returned for a fumble return touchdown. And we can go to the Mark Andrews fumble. This one, I would say, is more of a hell of a play by Bernard than anything else. He caught it. He tried to run left instead of move upfield. Bernard made a hell of a play on the ball. And, of course, we could talk. I mean, look at that. A punch-out. It's slippery. We saw that in the Rams-Eagles game. So, and then finally, I want to bring up this next one. What's with the failed two-point conversions? Let's go to clip number 5 here. This one. This is what really cost him the game. 133, 2-point conversion, he drops it. So for me, I would actually say the Ravens lost this strictly just because of the fact that they were driving. The Bills really couldn't stop them in the second half, just running the football and through the air. And so when you take a look at how Lamar Jackson was playing up to that point, start of the second half, he was terrible. We know the 2 turnovers, the interception, the fumble, wasn't looking great for him. And then in the second half, the running game started to get going. Justice Hill had a couple nice runs. Derrick Henry had a couple nice runs. And then Lamar Jackson made some crucial throws. He was wide open on that touchdown, no pressure at all, wide open for that last touchdown instead of the 2-point conversion. Here's my issue, though. They have Derrick Henry, and I want to play this for everybody. What's with these 2-point conversions? And they're both Lamar Jackson throwing the football. You have Derrick Henry in the backfield. Did they not learn from earlier this year when Justice Hill was out there? No, instead they leave Mark Andrews out there. So I don't understand what Todd Monken's doing. I don't understand what John Harbaugh's doing. There was no design runs for Lamar Jackson. That was a key in the Steelers game. I don't understand what's going on for the Baltimore Ravens. Josh Allen did what he needed to do. But for me, all about the Ravens. They lost this game, hands down.
Yeah, I honestly agree. I agree. It was a lot of crucial mistakes in very crucial times that you just can't have in the divisional game in the playoffs, you know.
I want to ask you this about Lamar Jackson. He seems to not be able to win multiple playoff games in a singular season. He's never done it in his career. He's only won one. He's been one and done, essentially. How long will it be until we accept maybe he doesn't win a Super Bowl in his entire career. Is Lamar Jackson good enough to carry a mediocre to good Ravens team to a Super Bowl?
I think honestly, I think next year is really the make or break year before I classify him in like the Dak category.
Okay.
Obviously his talent is far better than Dak's in almost every aspect, but if you can't kind of connect on those big time plays and like the big time scenarios, you're really not going to be recognized as like one of the legendary quarterbacks. Like in this day and age, it's like Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. Even though Allen does lose games, but he does perform in the numbers category, so you could debate that. But I think that there's going to be a lot of talk that a lot of people that really love Lamar are going to have to come to realization that maybe he's not all that at the end of the day.
Do you think Josh Allen will get the MVP this year?
I don't know. As much as I would like him to, I don't think so. But I think if playoffs were considered in the MVP race, I think that game just won Josh Allen it because, I mean, Lamar has what, 8, 9 Pro Bowlers on his team. Like he's an 1,800-yard rusher. I don't know, 12 touchdowns, however many touchdowns Henry has. But and James Cook, he barely reached 1,000 yards. He doesn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. Overall supporting cast. I don't know if you saw on the game since week 11 or something like that. The Ravens D had been first in almost every category.
Yeah.
And the Bills have not had that at all. They've had an injured D until this game where the D finally showed up and actually stopped Derrick Henry a little bit, as much as you can stop Derrick Henry. But
right.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day it might be Lamar, but I think it's honestly a toss-up.
So my argument for this is, and someone brought up the weapons that Josh Allen has. Dalton Kincaid, first-round pick. Keon Coleman, projected first-round pick, went early second. Amari Cooper, 5-time Pro Bowler. I'm reading this from the comment. Khalil Shakir, second leader in yards after the catch, and Cook, 1,000-yard rusher, while leading the league in rushing touchdowns. He was tied, by the way. There were 3 other people, including Derrick Henry, and also a top 3 offensive line. I'm just going to give the facts out there. Because I brought up Lamar Jackson's first-round picks, and people don't seem to say, well, that's good enough. They're first-round picks, but they're busts. Well, Lamar Jackson currently has Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, Linderbaum, their center, and Ronnie Stanley, their tackle. So that's what? That's 5 first-round picks compared to Josh Allen's 2. Keon Coleman didn't have that big of an impact. He had 5 games of 50-plus yards. Amari Cooper, this was his worst season of his entire career. The Bills, this is the first time they've had a top 3 offensive line in the entirety of Josh Allen's career, and I think we could all agree Khalil Shakir would not be a wide receiver 1 for any of the playoff teams right now. I think that's by far and away, hands down, Khalil Shakir would not be the number 1 receiver on any of the playoff teams. And also James Cook, yeah, he has, 16 rushing touchdowns, but he's also, I think, 16th in yards? Something like that? I mean, it's ridiculous. So for me, I take a look at the MVP situation, and I think Lamar Jackson got better by addition. Josh Allen got better with subtraction. Because we have to realize, going into the season, he lost a bunch of his key defenders, Trey White, Poyer. I know Poyer came back, but did Poyer come back? I know he left. I'm not sure if he came back.
It was a Hyde that came back, but he's not even playing. I think he's on the practice squad still. Right.
And then you also lost Mitch Morse. You lost your number 1 and number 2 wide receiver. And we go into the season like, are they going to make it to 10 wins? And then all of a sudden, Josh Allen comes in, this beautiful, efficient offense comes out, and that's the reason why Josh Allen's here. Lamar Jackson got Derrick Henry, who is a 2,000-yard running back, who is unstoppable in the second half. So that's my argument. If we talk about, because remember, people didn't care about the numbers last year with Lamar. Otherwise, Josh Allen would have won the MVP because Josh Allen had the numbers. Lamar didn't. And now Lamar has the numbers. Josh Allen doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know why people are acting like also Zay Flowers is bad.
I know.
Like he's what, an 1,100-yard receiver? He's definitely, I would say, in the top echelon of receivers overall. Or he's a minimum above average receiver, and he's definitely would be the receiver 1 on the Bills team without a doubt.
If we take out name value, so Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, whatever the case may be, and you look at just average separation, Lamar Jackson had the best separation in the NFL this season. So I don't care about where you got drafted, what your name is. Lamar Jackson had the most amount of room for any weapons in the NFL. His receivers generated the most room for him. So, and that is obviously the threat of Derrick Henry, the RPO, the read option, whatever the case may be. Having Derrick Henry in there, it's a massive threat. So, wait, you don't know. If you had to take a guess now, who gets the MVP?
I mean, looking at like the polls and the likelihood, I think it will be Lamar, unfortunately. But I do think Josh Allen still has a chance. I would say right now, maybe like Lamar like 52 and like Allen 48 or something like that.
Okay.
Something along those lines. I think it's very, very close. I think it'll be down to maybe a handful of votes. Um, but I just hope people don't really ride with the numbers. I feel like he passes the eye test if you think about it. People will probably disagree, but that's what I think.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into it, though. It's time for that moment. 5 years in the running. We've had this debate. We've had this discussion going on for a very, very long time, and it's time to finally have it because this is the year that Eli Manning is up for the Hall of Fame. 15 finalists. He made it all the way through, and now he's one of the remaining 15. And for our viewers here, these are the finalists. I'll go big screen here. These are the finalists that we have here. So we got Eli Manning, Fred Taylor, Marshall Yanda, Jari Evans, Willie Anderson, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, Steve Smith, Antonio Gates, Jared Allen, Terrell Suggs, Luke Kuechly, Eric Allen, Darren Woodson, and finally Adam Vinatieri to round it out. 15 finalists. Modern era finalists, only 5. A maximum of 5 can make it. So it's time, Nick. Here's the big question. Does Eli Manning deserve to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in your eyes?
Yes, without a doubt. Yes, 100%.
That's it. No, give me a take on it, Nick.
You want the accolades?
Absolutely. Give me the accolades. Right. I want to hear it.
All right, I'll give you everything. Ready? 4-time Pro Bowler, top 15 in fourth quarter comebacks, 11th in game-winning drives, 7th in completions, yards, and touchdowns when he retired. He's now 11th. 2-time Super Bowl winner and MVP. Can't forget that. 210 consecutive games started, which is third all time. And I have to say that record was only broken because Ben McAdoo was desperate to save his job and benched him for Geno Smith, which ended terribly. All right. Okay. 8-4 playoff record. 15 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions in both the Super Bowl runs. Therefore, you could classify him as clutch. Postseason record of most fourth quarter or overtime touchdowns. Historical upsets like beating the infamous 18-0 Patriots, as you know. And just as a little reason why I also think he'll be in, there's only 13 players with multiple Super Bowl MVPs, and they're all in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Well, here, I want to talk about one of those MVPs before I get into anything. And
I knew this was coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The 2007 Super Bowl. We've talked about this extensively. I've always said I give you the 2011 because Eli Manning set the playoff passing record. I'll give you 2011. I have no problem with him winning through and through, even though the defense shut down one of the top offenses in the NFL. But in this case, in the 2007 case, the 18-0 season, let's do a mystery comparison, Nick. I play these games occasionally. So let's begin with this one. This was a Super Bowl MVP in Von Miller in the 2013 season when the 2015 season when the Broncos had a tremendous offense. They went up and they performed beautifully. Peyton Manning had 5,400 yards and 55 touchdowns, something crazy like that. But yeah, no, Von Miller got the MVP with 8 pressures, 2.5 sacks, 6 total tackles, 4 defensive stops, 0 QB hits, 5 hurries, and 2 forced fumbles. And on the other side, I would say that this is basically a wash. These two players are very close to one another. I want to say, can you guess who this defensive player is for the... there's a little clue. Defensive player is for the Giants.
Well, maybe Justin Tuck?
You're damn right it is. That's really? Justin Tuck.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me, and by the way, Peyton Manning didn't do much in that Super Bowl, and Eli Manning, we can argue, also didn't do that much, and I looked at it, out of these, there's 33 quarterbacks that won Super Bowl MVP, or 33 times the quarterbacks won. Eli Manning in that 2007 Super Bowl is 25th out of 33. Justin Tuck put up a similar performance in a Super Bowl MVP. Why doesn't he get it? And I could also argue that O.C. Umenyiora and also Michael Strahan also had a massive impact in that game. In fact, in both these Giants and Patriots Super Bowls, in both those years. And I think I might be a little bit off, but I know for a fact in those singular seasons, those Super Bowls, Tom Brady was pressured the most in each of those Super Bowls for the entire season. So we could argue that also the Giants doing what they did against the number one offense in the NFL, just like the Patriots did against the Rams in 2018, just like the Patriots did against the greatest show on turf in 2001, the defense deserves more credit. And I also would say that in 2021 or 2020, when the Buccaneers won it, Tom Brady did just enough because the defense entirely, there was no one outstanding player. So that's why you give it to Tom Brady. You bring up those 4 Pro Bowls. Eli Manning was a replacement in 2 of them. So he did not even earn the Pro Bowl votes. He was a replacement. So I'm going to wash that, just like I wash out Tyler Huntley's Pro Bowl. I wash out Mac Jones's Pro Bowl because he doesn't really get it. I'll also add on top of the fact, and this is my argument with Russell Wilson. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2. How much help did he get with heavy defense and running the football? Let's see. In Eli Manning's career, especially up until the 2012 season, the Giants were 4th, 8th, 11th, 7th, 8th, 15th, 6th, 6th, and 5th in rushing yards from 2004 to 2012. So he had an above top 10 rushing game every single year. Brandon Jacobs, Ahmad Bradshaw. And I'm shocked you didn't bring up offensive line. Or
that was gonna be
Go for it.
My later.
Go for it right now.
About the defense, I'm about to bring this up as well.
Sure.
So Eli has only had a top 10 defense 5 times in his career. He's had in 2005 they were 8th, in 2008 they were 5th, in 2010 they were 7th, 13 they were 8th, and 16 they were 2nd. All right, and then for the O-line rankings, it's only been 4 times in his 16 years of playing. So 2006 they were 7th. And this is like overall rankings, like including passing and running. 2007 they were 8th. 2008 they were 2nd, and 2009 they were 6th.
Well, we could look at different things, but we talk. I want to break it up between pass blocking and run blocking, because I would say that you would say pass blocking is a better argument for Eli Manning's case, correct?
Yeah.
So let's break it down. In 2007, they had a pass blocking grade that was 7th highest in the NFL. In the 2011 season, that was their worst offensive line. That was the most impressive one that I give you. But that 2007 one, they had the 7th best pass blocking and 4th best run blocking offensive line. And in that little, in the span from 2007 to 2010, 7th best pass blocking, 11th best pass blocking, 9th and 10th best pass blocking. And the run blocking was 4th, 6th, 2nd, and 13th. So the offensive line for the Giants, and by the way, in the entirety of Eli Manning's career, which I'm sure that you think the Giants' offensive line was that bad, Eli Manning was only top 10 in sacks one singular time, and that was the 2007 season. And I believe he was number 10. So it's not like the offensive line was selling.
Well, yeah, but the reason why that he's probably not that high is because, like you were saying, that they were primarily a run team, given that they always had the tandem of Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs. But that doesn't classify as the pass blocking being good, because if you're pass blocking less, your numbers might be a little bit better because you have more energy to be, and you're more stamina to be able to do all pass blocking. Because the bottom line, anyone who's played football knows that pass blocking is 10 times harder than run blocking.
Well, obviously, because you're holding there for 2.5, 3 seconds, so it's incredibly difficult. But I would say that, what would you classify is a better representation of how a quarterback plays? Would you say passer rating, ESPN's QBR? How would you classify a quarterback's performance overall?
I don't know. I've always been the person that I kind of just mainly look at the stats. I guess more passer rating. I think PFF grade is kind of like fake. It doesn't really mean shit at the bottom line. I feel like it's so random, and they could have a random player being one of the best graded, but he's just not. So I guess passer rating overall, but I usually just go off everything, like sacks taken, fumbles, all that stuff.
Okay, well, how about this? I'll use your passer rating, right? Would you believe that in the entirety of Eli Manning's career, the entirety of his career, he was above average in passer rating, so 15th and higher, 5 times. 16 years, 5 times. Every other time he was below midway. And several times he was a bottom 10 quarterback in passer rating. He has one of the lowest completion percentages out of any potential and current Hall of Famer. And I can keep going. Like, for instance, here. Let me help you out a little bit here. Let's go with this. Let's go with this one, first of all. He is the third most pick sixes during his entire career, and he has the most interceptions not only till his career, but let's back it up all the way to 1999, which is 5 years before his career even started. So he has a 5-year buffer between him and everybody else because he has that many interceptions in his career. He has the same amount of 3,000-yard passing seasons than he does 4,000-yard passing seasons. And here's what I find shocking. I think it's only 3 or 4 off from having the same amount of games, a 60% completion percentage and above, and 59.9 and below. He is basically probably the most mid-quarterback outside of 2 playoff runs. And if we have to, and let's just say, how about this? Will you at least agree that the 2007 Super Bowl, the defense probably deserves more of the credit? Where if you were able to give out a Super Bowl MVP to a unit, the Giants defense would deserve that Super Bowl MVP instead of Eli Manning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think overall that team was definitely a defensive game, but I think Eli kind of deserved and won that because of that play where he basically broke almost 3 sacks and made a crazy throw to practically win the game, and then also just dimed up Amari Toomer in a crucial moment, which, I mean, it may seem easy, but it's realistically not easy. And I think he basically won them that game overall, no matter how good the defense did. Because you can stop people all you want, but you can't get points on the board, you're not going to win. And you can also say vice versa. But I mean, I think Eli won in that game, even though the defense did perform very, very well. And I think that's why he won.
Well, I'll say this. So if you agree with me, so work with me, that the defense deserved that MVP instead of Eli Manning, then Eli Manning falls into the same category as Nick Foles and Joe Flacco. You made it to a Super Bowl, you won 1 Super Bowl MVP. And you know what? Given the circumstances, what distinguishes Eli Manning from those quarterbacks? I would say that Joe Flacco's had more playoff success over his career. Eli Manning, he's never been a top 5 quarterback numbers-wise. He's never been a top 5 quarterback in voting-wise. He's never even been considered for an MVP award. He never was considered for an All-Pro, which means he wasn't even a top 2 quarterback in his own conference, let alone the entire league. And I would say that just based on ball position alone, the Giants had the upper hand because they had significantly better starting lines of scrimmage in that game than the Patriots did. I mean, there were even drives here where they're starting in New England territory. The Patriots, we're starting on the Patriots 11. They're 10. They're 11. They're 20. The Giants starting on their own 40, their own 36, their own 43, the New England 49. So they're starting in Patriots territory or midway through the field. I would say any average to slightly above average quarterback should be able to put up at least a field goal if you're basically midway through the entire field. So I think that's just based on Tom. That was Tom Brady. The one thing that everybody knew about Tom Brady's career, if you can get pressure on him, he'll either make mistakes or he will be basically subdued into just being a guy who can make some great plays. But I think that if we're going to give Eli Manning the MVP based on one play that was, as he even admits, the luckiest play in Super Bowl history, then I would say that's unfair. I would say that if he went out and did what Nick Foles did against Belichick's defense, that would be more convincing. Instead, I could argue that both times it was a defensive performance, and Eli Manning took advantage of what Tom Brady and what the Patriots defense gave him. Now, again, I'll tell you, 2011, I give it to you. He played outstanding in that entire playoff run. But in that last Super Bowl, in that Super Bowl run, that final game against the Patriots, the defense shut them down to 17 points. They were one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL that year. Actually, both years. And the defense stepped up big, and Eli Manning put up 21 points in the second one and 17 in the first. We're calling that Super Bowl MVP now? We're calling that Hall of Fame worthy?
Well, I mean, you could argue that, I guess, he doesn't deserve it off one play, but it's also not like he had bad stats. He 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. It's not bad. It's not like you didn't deserve that. Like if say the defense didn't step up and all the defense players played average and say Justin Tuck didn't have that great game, I think you could easily give it to him. I don't think it's not like he didn't deserve it. I think he was definitely up there for deserving it. I think he definitely got it because he's the quarterback, and the bottom line, the quarterback is the person that drives the team and leads a whole team. In that sense. But I wouldn't argue that he only won it because of that one play. I think he outside of that did put up very good stats. And also back to him not being a top five quarterback. Um, Based off my eye test and looking at studying QB stats and basically like their targets and their overall ranking. So these are times where I had Eli ranked top 10 QB.
Well,
Right?
I said top 5.
Well, it's both. It's both. I have where I have him every year. Right.
Okay.
So 05, I have him 7th. 09, I have him 10th. 2010, I have him 5th. 2011, I have him 4th, and 2014 and 2015, I have him 6th.
Nick, he led the league in interceptions 3 times, and one of those you said a 4,000-yard season with 31 touchdowns and 25 picks was, I think, number 7 on your list. That was 2010. He had a 10-6 record, Nick. And by the way, as soon as the running game fell off, which was, if I look at my numbers here, 2013, when the running numbers really fell off, he had 2 winning seasons, excuse me. Actually, no, 2013. He had 1 winning season after that point. After his running game became bad to average, because there was a season where they were 12th, which was 2014. They had 1 winning season, which was 2016, when they had OBJ. When he went off that year. Which, by the way, I have the number. He was offensive rookie. He was All-Pro 2 that year. He was offensive rookie of the year in 2014, All-Pro 2 in 2015, All-Pro 2 in 2016. So the best season after Eli had an average running game was 11-5, where he completed 63% of his throws, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 16 picks.
Yeah, but also at that time it was like OBJ and Eli playing catch. He had nobody else on that team. He had for I think maybe 1 year when OBJ was in. I don't remember. I think Victor Cruz put up his good year, and then they drafted OBJ, and then he got hurt.
Right, that year Victor Cruz had 586 yards, 1 touchdown. He started 12 games, played in 15.
Yeah, that was after his injury, so he was done after that. But I mean, after that, he had nobody. Like that, the defense was, I feel like, one of the worst in the league, statistically, if I remember correctly, for I don't know how long, for probably until recently. I mean, you can't really do much. I feel like, bottom line, if you have not a good O-line, no run game, no other receivers besides one guy who's a rookie, and also was some problems with OBJ, but I'll.
Well, you talking about the playoff situation, chilling on a boat.
Yeah, the infamous yacht. But I mean, yeah, he threw a lot of picks, but I feel like based off the team that he had, I feel like he kind of did well overall. I mean, he regardless, even though he threw 25 picks, still had an 85 passer rating, 85.3 passer rating, and that's pretty good to have, I guess, for throwing 25 picks. So you got to be doing something right.
That was 2010.
And, I mean,
he had 85 passer rating, that ranked 17th in the NFL.
Okay, well, it's all right.
It's all right. 17th. You're calling that you call that what, number 7 in the NFL? He was 17th in passer rating.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his coach at that time, so I could.
Wouldn't that be Tom Coughlin still?
Was it still Tom Coughlin?
I'm pretty sure. But hold on. His highest pass rating of his entire career in the ranking wise was 2011. He was 7th. That's the only. If you talk about pure passing stats, that's the only one you could say where he's top 10. And we have like 45 seconds left because I got free Zoom. It's going to run out in 40 minutes. Give me your list of 5 finalists for the Hall of Fame. Ran out of time. We lost them. Hold on. Let me. We'll go to technical difficulties. I'll bring him in once again. We're gonna do a 60-second break. We're gonna come back. I'm gonna get Nick to do his top 10 list. I got free Zoom, so I apologize. We're gonna bring him back in a second.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
All right, we're back. Love free Zoom. Gotta love free Zoom. We're back. So how about this? Now we got more time. So let's get into, I'll bring up the finalists again. So for those who don't know who the MVP finalists are, these are who they are. We got a bunch of people, 15 modern day finalists. We're only allowed to get 5, maximum of 5. I think there's 7 to 9 that you could, I think the maximum they could have in a single year is 9. So you have 5 first year guys. So let's begin with yours. So who are your 5 Hall of Fame candidates, Hall of Fame guys who are going to get it this February?
Right now, I was a little torn between a couple, honestly. But obviously you got to have Eli Manning in there. Not even a debate. And I got Antonio Gates, and in no specific order, by the way. Adam Vinatieri, Terrell Suggs, and then Torrey Holt. That's
Interesting.
my top 5 right there.
Now, I'm going to do mine, and I know for a fact you left one out, which is fine. So here's my top 5 if you're able to see the graphic. This is my top 5. I got Torrey Holt, Antonio Gates, Terrell Suggs, Luke Kuechly, which I'm surprised you didn't add, and then Adam Vinatieri.
Oh.
Adam Vinatieri.
Wow.
So Adam Vinatieri, obviously, I would say that we both completely agree on that. He's the all-time leading scorer. He has over 2,600 points, 4-time Super Bowl champion. He's a member of the all-decade team and all 100 all-time team as well. So I think he's a foregone conclusion he's going to get it in. Antonio Gates, I would say he got snubbed last year, but I would say he's probably one of the most underrated but appreciated tight ends in NFL history. He made the all-decade team in the 2000s. Terrell Suggs, we both agreed on that. That's what I'm surprised we actually agreed on.
Yeah, I didn't really know a lot about Terrell Suggs, and then when I was researching him, I was like, wow, he's kind of a dog, honestly. So I would have to I feel like I had to add him there. Honestly, in all honesty, I feel bad. I low-key forgot about Luke Kuechly. So if I had to, I would probably replace him with Torrey Holt.
You replace
Um,
Torrey Holt with Luke Kuechly. Okay.
yeah, I feel like that would be the only person that would really have to go out of those. But yeah, I never really knew a lot about Terrell Suggs. Obviously, I knew because he kind of tormented Eli for a little bit when they played, but I didn't realize how good his stats were. So looking back at that, I was like, all right, he kind of has to be in there.
Well, I would say that Torrey Holt is one of those players that get extremely sort of passed on. I mean, think about it. He retired in 2009. His time is running very short to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. I think he's got 4 more years of eligibility for the modern day player. I mean, he had 8,000-yard seasons. That's eighth most, tied for eighth most in NFL history. He has 77.4 receiving yards per game, which is 10th all time. He was part of the crucial greatest show on turf. Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk. I mean, the fact that he hasn't made it yet is a little bit surprising. I mean, he has 13,000 yards. He's already on an all-decade team. So, for me, Torrey Holt, I think, should deserve it, at least in this one. And then Antonio Gates, like I said, one of the most underrated but appreciated tight ends in NFL history. I mean, I would say that every time you talk about a top 5 or top 3 tight end list, you're always including now, or I guess it would be top 5 now because Travis Kelce, but Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, Antonio Gates, and then I don't care who else you put in that number 5 spot. But those 4, in whatever order you want to put them in, always included.
Yeah.
They're always included. So I think he deserves it. This is his second year of eligibility. He should get in this time. And as you said, Terrell Suggs, Tom Brady, and I'm a Patriots fan, as you know, got tormented. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, and a lot of others. I mean, that defense was absolutely insane. And based on those years, he was just past the 2000 Ravens, who were insane, but still kept it up with what that 2000s Ravens defense was. So, he was also Defensive Player of the Year. He had 14 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 20 tackles for a loss during that DPOY year. 139 sacks, which is 12th all time. He also has the NFL record for most tackles for a loss, 202. I mean, Terrell Suggs is an absolute beast. Yeah. But I think Torrey Holt's time has come.
Yeah, my also reason why I think Eli might be in, I think I've said this to you before, is that he's just so involved with the NFL even after his retirement. And I feel like they kind of have to make him first ballot, whether you think he deserves it or doesn't, strictly for the fact that like he's in the Pro Bowl games, like you always see NFL ads with him in it and Peyton. And I feel like Torrey Holt, I haven't seen anything from Torrey Holt since 2009. So, well, I mean,
here's the thing. Like, yeah, that's true, and I'm sure that will help him, but why? It has nothing, like, he's in media. That's great, but his playing career is over.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to say it keeps him relevant, there you go. That's fair.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like, especially nowadays, I feel like character is very overlooked. And I feel like Eli never was a guy to complain or like put the blame on somebody else. And like he really was just like he was nicknamed Iron Man because like when the years when they did have a bad name, he would get like laid out cold on the floor and just get back up, like fix his jersey and not say a word or not say anything to the media, nothing like that. And I think that's also why they kind of kept him around. Also because it's two brothers, Peyton and Eli, who should be Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So it's kind of just a rare breed as well, with Weather also kept around in the NFL, the NFLI.
That's fun. I'll say this. Comparing Eli to any of the other quarterbacks that are soon eligible, maybe currently playing, or around his era, give me a couple quarterbacks that you would say are decently fair comparisons to Eli.
I would say Big Ben is definitely the closest, hand in hand. I don't think Philip Rivers deserves to be in the Hall of Fame at all.
I agree with you on that.
I think he was definitely a very good quarterback, but I don't think that he's really in the same echelon. Rodgers is better than Eli. Like I love Eli, but I gotta be real. Rodgers is better than Eli.
You better say Rodgers is better.
Yeah. I mean, I think debatably the best arm of all time. But I think Russell Wilson is not as good as Eli. Maybe a hot take, but
No, not a
I
hot
mean
take.
he's always had elite defenses, elite players. I feel like there hasn't been a time. There's only been a handful of years, maybe 1 or 2 years where, including this year, where he hasn't had elite receiving talent, someone elite in the backfield like Marshawn Lynch, or whoever else, and then Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman on defense, and some more names. I think it's just not even a debate, really.
Would you throw Matt Ryan in there?
Oh yeah, Matt Ryan. I forgot about Matt Ryan. Yeah, he would. I think he would kind of be. I would say honestly, um, you could really group Eli, Big Ben, Matt Ryan together. I feel like they're kind of the three that were outshined by like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, um, Rodgers. Too. You think about Rodgers there. Um, Maybe Brett Favre, even though he was kind of
He was on his
um,
way out
yeah,
early in
exactly.
Eli's career.
But yeah, I think you group those three together. Honestly, that's kind of perfect. And then yeah,
Well, I would say that Matt Ryan's way to the Super Bowl is a bigger high than Eli at any point in Eli Manning's career. He didn't win it, but he got there by winning an MVP, by putting up insane numbers. Tom Brady had 28 touchdowns to 2 picks and coming off the suspension, and had his highest graded Pro Football Focus, or it might be number 2 grade in the history of Pro Football Focus. And we look at Matt Ryan, and he somehow won the MVP, which I still don't agree with. And something that I'm actually glad we didn't do, and I thought that you might think I might bring it here and bring up different eras of quarterbacks, because the easiest comparison anybody can make is Jim Plunkett, who won a Super Bowl MVP. He's won 2 Super Bowls. He has a 500 record. That's the easiest one, but I'm actually glad we didn't do that, because it is unfair to compare those types of eras in the 70s and 80s to today's NFL. But for me, Joe Flacco, he deserves to be in comparison to him.
yeah.
Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, I agree with. How about Donovan McNabb? How do you feel about McNabb being compared?
Like I don't know. I mean, I don't really know a lot about him, so I mean, I really haven't done much research on McNabb, so I can't really say. I mean, I could definitely see why he's compared. It's definitely not a horrible comparison, but maybe it's my own personal bias. But I would put Eli above him.
Like, play for the
Um,
Eagles.
yeah, exactly.
Well, hold
I'm an
on.
avid Eagles hater, so
Oh yeah, I'm sure you love how Saquon's performing this year.
yeah,
What I'll say is Donovan McNabb had higher highs and more long-term success. Eli Manning did play longer, which helps with his numbers, even though they were middle of the pack through most parts of the season. I got the numbers in front of me if you want them. But Donovan McNabb made it to 5 NFC championships and a Super Bowl. Eli Manning made it to 2. He made it to the playoffs 6 times, but only had 2 playoff drives. Real long playoff series, I should say.
yeah.
Because he was one and done in 4 out of the 6.
Well,
And
in one of those
his
games,
performances in, I think, maybe all 4 of those losses, he had, I think, a sub 60% completion percentage and multiple turnovers in several of those. And again, we're calling it. So let's sort of round this out here. You would say Eli Manning, when you sum up his entire career, Eli Manning deserves to be a first ballot, meaning that not only is he going to have to be in the Hall of Fame, he is so good and so great, so transcendental, that he deserves going in his first try compared to the rest of his modern day peers that are up for the finalists. So you would sum up his career and you would reason for him being a first ballot Hall of Famer because what?
I would say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer because everybody that is currently eligible for Hall of Fame, that I think he outshines them. Because quarterback is just the hardest position in football, and it's a lot harder to find a good quarterback, and especially a good quarterback with a good head on his shoulders, like Eli had, to kind of push you to that next level, which I think he did. Um, yeah, he's been 1 and out in 4 playoff games, but I mean, I also don't think Eli was ever surrounded with that big of talent. When I was kind of when I was researching the like overall talent and like where he would kind of rank, um, he was outshined by like all the big names like Brady, Peyton, Breeze, Rodgers, Big Ben, Matt Ryan, and he was even tied with Joe Flacco, and I think he kind of has achieved more than Joe Flacco has. Even though I think you could be guess closely knit them together, but I mean the 2016 playoff run, you can't blame that on him, honestly. OBJ had like 26 drop passes, and so did the entire team. The entire team was just awful. Um, but I mean, I just think, listen, obviously, yeah, you could blame me on some bias, but I think great stats overall. Two-time Super Bowl MVP. Uh, Never got hurt. Always fought through everything for the team. Um, and he's just a real diehard guy. He's loyal. I feel like no one can really say you can't really say a bad thing about Eli unless I guess it comes to some certain stats. Um, but I think the whole team record, the 500 winning overall record is just not a good argument because I mean you could have an awful team surrounding you and you're not going to win games no matter how good of a quarterback you are unless you throw for like 8,000 yards and 100 touchdowns. Um, and Eli has only had only had good talent around him for a certain amount of years, and I would say a good maybe 60% of his career he has not had good talent around him. Um, and I think you can't really fault that on the quarterback overall.
Well, obviously that falls a lot on the GM, and later in Eli's career, he had Gettleman as his general manager, and I would say that even to today, while it's the effects of him are wearing off of his poor decisions, I would still say there's some lingering effects of Gettleman's poor decision-making. But here's my argument with that. Aren't Hall of Fame, and if we're talking about first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks, shouldn't they be able to at least make themselves around 500 with average to below average talent? Because early in Eli's career, Tiki Barber was an MVP candidate. He was fourth in MVP voting and also made All-Pro first team and was a Pro Bowler twice. And Jeremy Shockey, their tight end, he was a Pro Bowler twice as well. And then we also got Victor Cruz. He won offensive. He was an All-Pro second team guy. OBJ 3 straight years. He was Rookie of the Year. Then he was All-Pro team twice. Then he also had Saquon, but that was the last year that he actually legitimately started. So maybe that's a little bit unfair. But early in his career, yes, 07, 08, he had no awarded players. But shouldn't first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks be able to at least put up decent numbers with average talent?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say though he definitely had average talent at some points, but there were some points where I mean you just couldn't do anything with the team where how awful we were at some times, you know. But listen, again, the defense have been awful sometimes, and at the point where OBJ was good, basically people say his career was wasted. As much as I hate to say it, it was because when OBJ got to New York, it was the only good person on that team was Eli Manning. There was nobody else. They
That's
got
fair.
Sterling Shepard, I think 2015, 2016, something like that. And he was all right. He was a good guy. And then right as OBJ came, Victor Cruz had an injury, like I said, and he was out. And there was really no one else on that team. I doubt can't name anybody that I even think was relevant. And Amari Toomer Tiki Barber was kind of right as Eli started getting his groove, and he started picking everything up and understanding how the game flowed and everything like that. But he really only had like Amani Toomer. He had Jeremy Shockey when he was pretty good. But most of the guys that he had were kind of in the beginning of his career when he was kind of still learning the ropes and everything. And a lot of QBs have struggled in the beginning too. So did Peyton Manning. And then all the talent towards the end of his career was kind of over because our defense was god awful. And it was really just one guy, one or two guys, and you can't really win a Super Bowl with one or two guys. Like look at the Bengals. So
I want to ask you this question. It's complete trivia, and I already probably know what your answer is. Can you tell me? Let's do a two-part here. The second leading receiver in OBJ's rookie year, and then the second receiving touchdown leader in OBJ's rookie year.
his rookie year.
OBJ's rookie year, 2014.
Oh God.
So let's go number 2 receiver in receiving yards for the Giants.
Can you tell me if Sterling Shepard was
No, Sterling Shepard was not there at that time.
there? Oh God.
You're not going to get it because you and I have spoken how many years about sports and how many years about the Giants. You've never mentioned this guy's name in your life.
Huh. It's like Mario. Nah, it's too early for Mario Manningham.
Too late
It can't
for
be
Mario Manningham.
Too late. Yeah, too late. Victor Cruz, was he? How was
He
doing
was
back
on the
then?
team. He played 6 games. He had 337 yards and a touchdown. No, the second leading receiver for the Giants was Reuben Randall.
Oh,
And the second touchdown leader was Larry Donnell, or Larry Donnell. I don't know how do you want to pronounce that name. He had 6 receiving touchdowns. There you go.
yeah.
Dude,
Reuben Randall was all right. He was like another one of those guys. He had one good season, and then the rest he was kind of there. But yeah, it was really just a tightrope the entire time. It was going from Eli to OBJ, all the time. And that's all they had.
130 targets.
Yeah.
130 targets. Although Reuben Randall had 127. Just OBJ caught 20 more passes than he did.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. You have any closing arguments, Nick, that you want to rip me on?
Most of our arguments we've covered. I would just say I think winning record is very much overlooked. And I just think Eli's Hall of Famer, and I'm excited to see. Well, when does it get announced?
NFL honors. I think it's the Thursday before the Super Bowl.
Perfect. That's perfect. We'll go to a bar and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I will say this though. In Eli Manning's entire career, passer rating wise, he was below the average for the league during his entire career. The average passer rating throughout his entire career was 85.6. His career passer rating was 84.1. ESPN, however, their QBR rating is from 0 to 100, and they include the strength of the competition. Theirs is also kind of like a PFF thing, but instead of doing like 2 points and -2 points and 1 point, whatever that is, they do 0 to 100. Eli Manning is slightly above average at a 54.5, which would rank 18th throughout that time. So depending on how you want to look at it, he's either slightly below average or slightly above average. And I'll say this, I will admit this. He will get in. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. He's not a first ballot. Because he wasn't ever considered an MVP candidate, was never considered even top 2 or top 3 in his own conference. 2 of his Pro Bowls he was a replacement in, and that's when the Pro Bowl meant something. The second half, not so much. That was on a decline. Early, though. Early. Because I think his replacements were 2012 and 2015. So that's when the Pro Bowl was kind of dying off. And now we have the Pro Bowl games. Oh, boy. Speaking of which, you're going to watch it this year?
No, hell no. It's so bad. I don't know.
I'm with
They've
you on that.
ruined
Flag
it.
football. Flag
Yeah,
football.
it's awful. They've ruined the whole Pro Bowl. I think honestly the award should become like invalid in someone's like accolade argument. It's a fan vote now.
Right. Well, and that's kind of unfortunate because for you actually, because that means that Eli Manning's 4 Pro Bowls, at least in my mind, 2 of them are replacements, so he didn't actually get the votes to make the Pro Bowl. But if we just completely discredit the Pro Bowl, then he's got a Walter Payton Man of the Year and 2 Super Bowls with 2 Super Bowl MVPs.
I mean, I don't think Pro Bowl is really that big of a factor either way. I feel like if you're determining someone's Hall of Fame eligibility based off their Pro Bowls, I feel like you kind of already lost the argument. I feel like I feel like it's not really worth that much, honestly. There's so many other awards that I'd value over that.
Fair point. All right, Nick, I appreciate you coming on the show. I want to have you in studio next time you're here. Maybe do another big-time debate, react to maybe the Super Bowl. How about this, since I have you here? Give me your me and my dad are going to do this on Friday's show, but I want your picks. Let's start with the AFC. Your team, the Buffalo Bills, versus the Chiefs. Who you got? Chiefs are favored at home by 1.5 last time I checked.
I really want the Bills. I do. But the Bills offense did not look that great strictly because of the play calling. But I was hoping that's because he was just Sean McDermott was trying to run out the clock and keep the ball out of the Ravens' hands. But I think this is the year that Josh Allen will take down Mahomes because I feel like he's looked like a different quarterback this year, honestly. Not doing any more stupid mistakes, not playing hero ball when he doesn't have to.
Right.
So I'm gonna take the Bills on this one, I think.
And let's go NFC. The shock of the entire probably century, the Washington Commanders with rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels upset the Detroit Lions this past weekend, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts is a little bit banged up. He says he's going to go, but he is apparently. I saw somewhere that it could be an MCL issue. So who knows what that looks like? But give me that one. The Eagles are favored by I think 5.5 at home. Who wins?
Yeah, it's the better of two evils. Honestly, it's the two teams that I don't want to see make the Super Bowl at all.
Two NFC East teams.
Yeah, but probably like the Commanders to win because I like the Eagles less. I really don't like the Eagles, but I think that I don't know how good the Commanders defense is, but I really don't feel like I've heard much. So I feel like when it comes to like the bottom line, I feel like the Eagles defense will help them out more than the Commanders defense will. And if Jalen Hurts even can play like suitable, I think it'll be over. You can't really stop Saquon, and if you can, you got to stop AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So I feel like you can't really do much.
There you go. Okay, you won't get to know my picks at least. You have to watch Friday's show. Can't give it away yet. Classified information. All right, Nick, I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you for taking some time out of your evening. I greatly appreciate it, man.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'll see you soon, Nick.
All right. Bye.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, we'll resume action of the Harvey Hour. We got to cover every single game that happened this past weekend. We got to talk about the Chiefs' controversies with penalties. There's some data out there that's utterly ridiculous. The Commanders' shock over the Detroit Lions, as well as the Eagles' dominance, nearly 300 rushing yards against the Rams. And finally, probably the biggest game of the weekend, at least with the highest stakes, Buffalo, Baltimore. Buffalo finally got their win. We're going to break all of that down coming up right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. Now, as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing tonight on this Tuesday?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the show. I enjoyed listening to your debate about Eli Manning.
Battling through sickness.
That's right. I'm feeling a little low, but I would never miss a show.
All right. Well,
and I do have, just I want to make one comment on your debate.
Sure.
I thought you both made very good arguments. I think, though, that Eli Manning will get in for 3 reasons. I think his name, he has a brother's coattails. I think his brother was head and shoulders over him in terms of intelligence on the field and physical ability. And I think that the franchise he played for, and the New York market, I think those are the things that are going to tip the scale for him. I do think that he, personally, I agree with you. I don't think that he really warrants the first ballot based on the totality of his career, a 500 record. You know, you mentioned all of his stats and where he ranked overall. He had some games that were very poor. I mean, he had a lot of interceptions. He had a lot of seasons where he didn't play very well. His first season, when he got out there, he was horrible. So and you look at the competition there, you just had it up there. I see him, unfortunately, as you can see, I'm maybe a little biased with my Patriots sweatshirt on here a little, but I do think he's going to find a way to sneak in.
I would say that you can make arguments for a lot of these guys. Marshall Yan, the phenomenal offensive lineman.
There's no other quarterbacks on
Steve
here.
Smith, he was a Triple Crown winner.
Yeah.
Being, 5'9"?
He never won a Super Bowl.
He played for the Carolina Panthers.
I know, but he never won a Super Bowl.
That's true. That's very true. All right, let's jump into the show, though, because we have a lot to talk about. Let's start with the first one, the Houston Texans. My God, what a okay performance, but C.J. Stroud got sacked 8 times. Patrick Mahomes, only 177 yards and 1 touchdown. The Texans did a good job, actually, at suppressing the Chiefs' running game, only 2.3 yards per attempt. Meanwhile, the Texans had 149 rushing yards. They had 5.1 yards an attempt. And what's crazy is I want to bring up this number because it is stupid how crazy, how shocking this game actually turned out to be. I think if I want to get this right to be sure, I think they're the only team to out yardage the opponent and lose in the second half or something like that. It was, I'm probably getting that wrong, but it was something along the lines of that. But there was some controversy, and let's actually bring up some controversy right now before we jump into the analysis here, because this was all over social media. It's the Mahomes being a flopper, the Chris Pauls of the world right here, the James Hardens. This one, becoming a runner, then trying to step out and draw a flag. That's not going to exactly get you to be liked anywhere in the NFL, flopping out of bounds. And then this one, this is the biggest one. Troy Aikman, when he was even calling out, Joe Buck was calling it out, the in-studio ref was calling this out. Patrick Mahomes becomes a runner, falls down over the Texans.
You didn't put the one in there with Will Anderson in the first drive of the game.
There
and
was
if
a roughing the passer.
That was a third down, I believe. And if they hadn't called that penalty, the Chiefs probably wouldn't have scored.
Well, here, let me ask you this question. Overall, what was your reaction, though, of this game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans?
My takeaway here is the Chiefs' continued drive to Super Bowl three-peat with less than convincing win over Texans, helped by some questionable penalties, which you just showed. I think the Texans had a good game plan. They executed it well until the fourth quarter. They were actually behind by 1 point at the end of the third quarter. The field goal kicker was abysmal. He missed 2 field goals on an extra point. Could have made a big difference in this game. The passing, Stroud under constant pressure. I think the real thing for the Chiefs has been their defense. And they managed to put a lot of pressure on Stroud, who was 19 of 28 for 245 yards. Mahomes, on the other hand, very pedestrian, 16 of 25, 177 yards and 1 TD. The rushing, very pedestrian for the Chiefs. Hunt had 8 carries for 44 yards. Pacheco, 5 for only 18 yards. On the other hand, as I said, I thought the Texans had a very good game plan. Mixon, 18 carries, 88 yards and a TD. Stroud, 6 carries for 42 yards. The receiving, I think the Texans hurt by injuries. Both Dell and Stiggs, out for them. Collins, 5 catches, 81 yards. Schultz, 4 for 63. On the other side, it was Kelsey. They're lucky they got him. I mean, he's a playoff guy. He always excels in the playoffs. 7 catches, 117 yards, and a TD. Worthy 5 catches for 45 yards. Interesting. Hopkins, no catches at all. They barely threw it to him. Schuster, no catches. Hollywood Brown, no catches. So they didn't have him. They got 4 targets and no catches at all. So I think if this is the Bills' year, then this is the one. They've got to beat them this year, and they've already beaten them once. I think the Chiefs are vulnerable, and not on defense. Their defense is great, but on offense, they're vulnerable. They without the help of the refs there, I think the game would have been closer. If the Texans' field goal kicker hadn't been abysmal, then I think there could have been an upset there. That's what it looked to me. Now Mahomes 7-0 in divisional round. He looks great on paper. Going to the AFC title game for the 7th straight season. 4-2 in the previous 6. They've never lost the Bills in the playoffs. It's Andy Reid's 30th career playoff win. He's sneaking up on Belichick. Kelsey picked up where he left off last year, excelling in the playoff games. 9th career 100-yard playoff game, which is a record. No catches, as I mentioned, for Hopkins, Brown, or Schuster on 4 targets. Lots of pressure on Mahomes, even without the blitz. 5 pressures on his pass in the first half. Mahomes sacked 36 times this year in the regular season. The defense, to me, was the difference. 23 pressures on Stroud under pressure on 56% of his dropbacks. He got 8 sacks. So he really got pounded up. And again, they didn't have Diggs or Dell, and they had both those guys had season-ending injuries. The poor play of the Texans' special teams, you can't emphasize that enough. On the opening kick, they had they gave up a 63-yard return and an unsportsmanlike conduct to I don't know who the guy was, but he's a bonehead. He went over to the sidelines and pushed the special teams coach. It was crazy. Fairbairn missing the 2 field goals on an extra point, which would have tied the score. The extra point would have made it 13-13 at the end of the third quarter. So I'd say the Chiefs got lucky in this one.
Well, I'll say this. Did the Texans play good enough to win? I would say that performance-wise, yes, but the fact that their offensive line allows Stroud to get sacked 8 times, I have to say no, because that was a massive detriment to the level of success the Texans could have. Their ceiling was capped because their offensive line wasn't good enough. Did the Chiefs play good enough to win? No. They got extremely lucky in this game. Again, it's another example of somehow the Chiefs just win a game. Do they feel convincing in this victory? No. Did they go out there and put up a dominant performance? No. Did they get assistance from the refs? Yes. And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there are numbers out there. This is not made-up data. This is not, just made-up stuff. I give credit to ESPN for this first graphic because look at this. Since 2021 in the playoffs, the Chiefs have gotten 36 penalties, but yet their opponents have 66. Their opponents have nearly double the penalty yards than the Chiefs do. And they've had 11 playoff games. 0 times have the Chiefs gotten more penalties than their opponent. 10 times their opponents, obviously, they're 10-0 when their opponent has more penalties. Or rather, when they have more penalties, 10 times for their opponents, none for the Chiefs. And finally, more penalty yards. The Chiefs have 1 time where they've had more penalty yards than their opponent. The Chiefs' opponents have 10 times they've had more penalty yards. But how about this one? The types of penalties, because this is crucial, right? A holding call, 5 yards, false start, whatever the case may be, that's not that bad. How about we get into some very crucial penalties here like DPI, defensive holding, roughing the passer. This is where it gets insane. So defensive pass interference and defensive holding. The Chiefs have gotten called in the playoffs the past 4 years 3 times. Their opponents have gotten called DPI and defensive holding 11 times. How about roughing the passer? The Chiefs have 1 roughing the passer call against them. Their opponents have 7 roughing the passer calls. Unnecessary roughness, 0-4. And unsportsmanlike conduct, 0-1. And 8 out of these 11 games were decided by 1 score or less. And if you just take the 15-yard penalties, so that's what? That's 12-1. 12, that's what, 180 penalty yards compared to 30? 15? I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory and then the refs are rigging the game for the Chiefs, but this is just data. These are just factual statements. These are factual points to make. And on top of that, it looks even worse. Pickett fake slide was putting himself at risk, and it was too advantageous to the offense of the quarterback because you can't hit him. You have to let up if he starts to slide. So the fake slide got immediately ruled out of football because of that reason. I think if you let up right before you go out of bounds, you're fair game. I don't care if you and maybe this is what you have to do. You have to put both feet out of bounds for it to be a penalty, not one. Because I think that would actually might solve that problem. I don't know what you think about it, but maybe it's 2 feet out of bounds, not just you walk out of bounds, where 1 foot could be out of bounds and then you get a penalty. Both feet have to be out of bounds in order for you to draw that penalty.
I think that it's out there that Mahomes is, it's a performance. He was trying to draw those calls, and he's going to hear about that, and I don't know how he'll react to it, but
he won't care.
He may not care. He's had some success with it. Whether it continues, I'm not so sure. Now they've kind of been called out a little bit. You show the data there about how it appears they're favored. We'll see what happens in the Bills game.
I think it should be interesting. All right, let's move on to our next topic here, which is probably the biggest shock of the playoffs, or at least in a very, very long time, because the Commanders got a shocking upset over the Detroit Lions in a 45-31 game. Jared Goff, 4 total turnovers, 3 interceptions, and a fumble, and even they had Jameson Williams out there throwing an interception as well. It was a complete mess, an utter and complete mess. Meanwhile, Jaden Daniels under pressure was basically perfect. This is a rookie quarterback we're talking, and the Commanders make it to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991. If I'm not mistaken, I want to make sure I get this fact checked just to be sure. Pretty sure 1991 they won the Super Bowl. So there's an opportunity for the Commanders just to keep setting records. Yeah, 1991 they won the Super Bowl that year. Jaden Daniels could be the first rookie quarterback to make and subsequently win the Super Bowl if they continue the trend of the 1991 Washington team. So here's my question to you. How surprising was Washington's win over the Detroit Lions?
Initially, I was quite surprised by it, but the more I thought about it, it's not that surprising when you consider the Lions and all the injuries they had on defense and injuries during this game they had. I think that in the end, I'm not so sure it was that surprising. I think the Washington, you could argue they won the game in the second quarter. They scored 28 points. Detroit scored 14. It was the highest scoring second quarter in the history of the playoffs. The first quarter, Washington was down by 4. They went to plus 10. In the second quarter, they were plus 3 in the third quarter and wound up plus 14 with a 45-31 win. Very impressive. Jalen Daniels, the guy's got ice water in his veins for a rookie. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 TDs, but even more importantly, 16 rushes for 51 yards. Robinson had a good game for them too, 15 rushes, 77 yards, and 2 TDs. The receiver core, Brown, almost 100 yards on 6 catches. McLaurin always has some key catches, 4 catches, 87 yards, and a TD. One of them was a 58-yard touchdown, which was very impressive. My takeaway, 5 turnovers, 3 interceptions and a lost fumble by Goff, and a poor defensive performance down the Lions' Super Bowl dream. And also Daniels' outstanding performance, converting 3 out of 4 fourth downs, which is, can't forget that. And excellent decision-making show why he is the Rookie of the Year for sure. No questions asked. Dan Campbell, his comments after the game, give them credit. They earned that game, and we didn't. We were here to get to the show, and we fell short, and that hurts. Washington, I said this, I think, when we were going over the games before, they had nothing to lose. They could play loose. They hadn't been to the Super Bowl in 33 years, and it's the first playoff game in 19 years. Daniels, he said, it's a surreal moment. I've always believed we could achieve more than people give us credit for. Only the second rookie to knock off a 1 seed. Flacco did it in 2009 when he beat Tennessee. I'd say the mistakes by the Lions included the option play pass from Williams. I don't know what they were thinking about there. And that's on Ben Johnson, I think. He called those plays, that sequence of plays. They just had gotten a key first down. They were moving the ball. They were only behind by 3 points. And they throw that intercept. They have Jamison Williams throwing the ball. That was crazy.
This was the play right after that big first down they had, which was the Jamison Williams pick.
Yeah, and then the Commanders went right down the field. So that was, to me, that was a turning point in the game, and it was on the Lions. I think they hurt themselves with that play. That's a self-inflicted wound. Washington has a rematch against Philly. It's a rubber match. I'd say a couple additional Lions takeaways I had. A near-perfect season wasted. They beat themselves. Goff implodes at the worst possible time. More injured defensive starters to cap off a cursed season. No edge to the defense. Optimism for the road ahead. I'm not so sure. The defensive players will be back. That's true, but it looks like both their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator will be gone. Those guys are going to be hard to replace.
Absolutely. Now, here's what I'm going to start with. I'm not going to start with today's take. Instead, I'm going to start with what I said on Friday's show about what could happen in this game. So, my original take, I want everyone out there to listen to what I said on Friday's show about what could happen in this game. Please take a listen. If Jared Goff gets risky, which he has done at times, underthrows or too far in one direction, and you pick him off, you have to capitalize on those turnovers. Because we've already seen Jared Goff's had a 5-interception game. And I think if Jaden Daniels comes in a situation where his defense picks off Jared Goff even 2 or 3 times, then I think he's going to put up some form of points, which would then put maybe Dan Campbell in a Buffalo Bills situation. Well, think about this for a second. Let's talk about the turnovers. So originally, they get a fumble in the first quarter. They followed up with a touchdown. Then they get an interception. It's the end of the half. They end up punting at the beginning of the second half. But then they get another pick, turn it into a touchdown, an interception, and then it's the end of the game. So they converted those turnovers into points. The only time that they didn't do that was when it was at the end of the half. So Jaden Daniels and this Commanders team did exactly what I thought could happen. Jared Goff in a big-time moment. He came up very, very small. And I have a serious problem, and I understand that Ben Johnson just got a job here. But let's take a look at that interception. This is a play you might dial up when you're up by 10, not down by 10. Also, Jameson Williams, he wasn't open for a second. Why are you throwing that football, man? Wasn't open for a single second.
Were you there?
What?
Were they down by 10 when that
happened? Yeah, they're down by 10.
Okay, yeah.
You're not up by 10, you're down by 10.
They were driving. They could have easily made it down by 3.
A big-time first down. Literally, the play before, I think it was a 21-yard first down.
Yeah.
And you followed up with the trick play when you're down by 10, and you throw it into essentially double coverage, and he was never open for a single second. I'm not faulting Jameson Williams because he's not a quarterback, but that's just a bad decision. So, yes, you're at fault, but I'm not saying that, you're an idiot because you're not a quarterback. That was your only pass, and it was just a bad throw in general. But I give serious props for this. Said way more about the Commanders than the Detroit Lions, because this is a rookie quarterback going to a team that had the worst defense in the NFL and one of the worst scoring offenses in the NFL, and he turned them around completely to being the number 2 overall pick, to flipping it around and potentially being a Super Bowl candidate, a Super Bowl team, if you go up against the Eagles, who have an injured quarterback. So there's an opportunity for Jaden Daniels to do something shocking and have a rookie quarterback win the Super Bowl. And I would say, let's just say that everybody expects the Chiefs game to go the way the Chiefs games normally go, a bad penalty in a crucial moment. Well, then we could potentially be seeing the Commanders and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I think the way that Jaden Daniels is playing, especially under pressure, the numbers are insane. He went 7-9 under pressure, 106 yards. That was a 97.2 PFF grade. If he could do that against the Chiefs defense, Jaden Daniels is going to be hoisting a Lombardi in his rookie year, because he's that type of guy. We've seen him in big-time moments already. He step up big time. And we're actually in a similar situation in the NFC Championship game than we were a couple weeks ago. Jalen Hurts gets banged up, may not even play, which might bring out either Kenny Pickett or Tanner McNee or whatever his name is. And what will that be? That will be A.J. Brown, and that'll be Saquon Barkley. And we already know what that outcome looked like because we already saw it. Jaden Daniels, game-winning touchdown, Commanders win. So there's a shot for Jaden Daniels to do the unthinkable, and I believe they're 5.5-point underdogs in this game. For me, I'm taking Commanders plus 5.5. I already took Commanders plus 8.5 before this game even started because I thought Jaden Daniels would make it interesting. My score was Detroit 31, Commanders 26. In this game, Jalen Hurts is not 100%. We saw what this matchup looked like, and the last time these teams played. Jaden Daniels was lights out late. The defense stepped up in a crucial moment, and Jaden Daniels scored a game-winning touchdown at the very end. So for me, I know we're not making our picks quite, yet. Maybe we have some shocking picks on Friday's show, but I think there's a serious shot with the way that Jaden Daniels played against this Detroit team that was 15-2, just played a tremendous game against the Minnesota Vikings, allowed him to score only 9 points and step up in a big crucial moment and then capitalize on the turnovers. I think that's huge. For a Commanders team that, like I mentioned, was one of the worst teams in the NFL. They had the number 2 overall pick. They were 25th in scoring offense and dead last in scoring defense. Yeah, well, they've completely flipped it around.
I think the Lions, you could argue they beat themselves. With 5 turnovers, you're not going to win a game doing that. But the Commanders took advantage of those, and they scored points off those turnovers. And Jaden Daniels playing lights out. Tom Brady said, amazing performance. The guy is so cool and under pressure. He's not upset at all. I mean, that's a big playoff game. Maybe he's just too young to know any better, that this is a huge game, and he came out and performed like it was regular season game and didn't seem to be upset about anything. He credits God. He said, it's all in God's hands. I'm just out there doing the best I can using my talents. And that's a formula that's working well for him. And I'd say that the Eagles should be very worried about in this game, particularly with Jalen Hurts banged up, may not even play. The Commanders can focus on Barkley. And, the wide receivers for the Eagles, they haven't really had that much action. They've been using the Saquon the most of all the games. He was the offense in this game for the most part. So, and we're going to talk about the Rams and the Eagles here in a minute. But I think the Eagles have a lot to worry about.
I would completely agree. And think about it. What I said in my analysis on Friday was Detroit needs to pound the ball because Washington, while it has, about an average defense this year, their rushing defense is one of the worst in the league. And in fact, it's ranked 30th in the NFL. The Lions averaged 8.7 yards a carry. They rushed for over 200 yards and scored 3 rushing touchdowns. And they lost by 14 points.
Ben Johnson called that game. I mean, he could have kept it on the ground. He could have kept it more, a more conservative game, and he didn't. And that play with Jamison Williams throwing the ball was that should never have been in the game plan. They should never have done that, particularly after they just got a big first down. Why did Williams even throw the ball? He looked down; it was covered.
Right.
He should never have even thrown the ball. He should have thrown it out of bounds or run with it.
This the play again. He was never open.
Yeah,
Jameer Gibbs was never open at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Did they talk to him much about that? I would have thought they would have said, hey, guess what? If it's anywhere near that the guy is covered, throw it out of bounds. You're not a quarterback, man. It's only a surprise. If it's a surprise and our guy is wide open, throw it to him. But otherwise, throw it out of bounds. And he didn't do it. I'm sure he feels terrible about it.
I would too. All right, let's get into our next topic here. Let's fly by with this one. So, the Philadelphia Eagles in the snow were able to get a big-time victory against the Los Angeles Rams that has Matt Stafford contemplating retirement after Stafford went 26-44, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He did get sacked 5 times, but Jalen Hurts, a little bit banged up, 15-20, 128 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He got sacked 7 times behind the second-best offensive line in the NFL. Saquon, though, that's the story of the day. 26 carries, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns coming on some big-time runs of 40-plus yards. So it was a big-time game for Saquon, as has basically every game this season. Basically every game for Saquon's been massive throughout this entire year after coming from the Giants to Philly. So here's my question to you. Really, how impressive was Philly's win over the Los Angeles Rams after the Rams just completely embarrassed the Minnesota Vikings last week?
I love this game. I thought it was a great game. I thought that the coaching job by Sean McVay was outstanding. Even though they gave up lots of yards to Barkley a second time, you would have thought that they might have found a little bit better scheme against Barkley, but he still had a huge amount of yards, 205 on 26 carries. Couple of touchdowns, but they bottled up Hurts. I mean, he had 7 carries for 70 yards and a TD. That was really his outstanding performance because he was only 15-20 for 128 yards passing the ball. And the receiving, I mean, nobody had more than 4 catches. Goddard was tops of 56 yards on 4 catches. Barkley had 4 catches for 27 yards. So he was the whole offense, basically. Smith had 4 and Brown had 2 for 14. He spent most of his time over on the sideline reading that book, I guess. Stafford, on the other hand, as you mentioned, 324 yards.
In
and
the
snow,
yeah.
2 TDs. He was under a lot of pressure. The weather conditions were horrible. Williams had a good game, but he fumbled it, and so did Stafford, actually. Williams, 19 for 106 yards. Stafford, 2 for 5. That was it for their rushing. Nakua, 6 for 97, and he had a fantastic catch there near the end, which they were driving down. They could have won the game. They were behind by 6. He got that big catch. They were getting down close to the red zone. Robinson 3 for 74 yards. Cooper Kupp, they don't use him that much anymore. I'm surprised.
He's contemplating leaving.
5 for 61 yards. I don't know why they don't use him more. Higbee, to me, he's an outstanding tight end. 7 for 54 yards and a touchdown. My takeaway in this game, Saquon Barkley and the defense takes the Eagles to the NFC Championship game in a one-dimensional game that they were lucky to win. And on the Rams, the 2 fumbles, Williams and Stafford, hurt a lot in a game that was masterfully coached by Sean McVay, giving the Rams a chance to win at the end. And I thought the way he managed the final 5 minutes of the game, you know, they were behind there by 13 points, and they managed to drive down the field, get a touchdown. They had 3 timeouts left. They used all 3 on the defensive stop, got the ball back with a little over, I think, 3 minutes left, and drove down the field there. That big catch by Nakua, but then the sack by Carter that did them in, and on 4th down they couldn't convert. But it was a very exciting game. Barkley, you know, he's the star of this game for sure. 2 TD runs of more than 60 yards, including a 76-yarder. Franchise playoff record, reminiscent of the Week 12 game where he had 255 yards, also a franchise record for the regular season. Barkley reached 20.8 miles per hour on both his TD runs. The guy is an amazing athlete. When the game was in doubt after a safety late in the third quarter that closed the margin to 1 point, Carter and Nolan Smith both forced fumbles on back-to-back series. It set up a pair of field goals and a 7-point lead. That was big. And also the sack by Carter there at the end. Hurts looked like he hurt his leg in the second half, and as you say, it might be an MCL. Is his passing game up to the test against the Commanders? I'm not so sure.
I think that we look at last year and how the Eagles' defense completely collapsed, and now we look at this year. My God, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. How the hell did the Eagles get both those players? I'm sure that, yes, while it was a risk taking Jalen Carter at the time because of his off-field issues, he is already a superstar in the NFL. I thought he should have been Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. He was all over the place. 7 total pressures, 2 sacks, 1 QB hit, 4 hurries, 2 assists, 1 tackle. He had 3 stops. 3 defensive stops in this game. 1 forced fumble. He was all over the place. And also, I'll give credit to Zach Bond. Again, I think he had a great game as well. Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, and also Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, this is the Eagles' defense that I think people expected the past couple seasons. Just take, the last 6 games where the defense fell apart. When you had Matt Patricia and Sean Desai debating on who's calling defense, who's scheming it up. But the name value was there. The Eagles put on a virtuoso, both on defense and on offense. Saquon Barkley, like you mentioned. I mean, once again, I've said this since Saquon went there. Every single game is an indictment on Joe Shane and kind of on John Mara because he allowed Joe Shane to let Saquon go for $250,000 more. I'm sure Joe Shane is kicking himself right now for not accepting that deal, and not only that, having it forever live on Hard Knocks. Not only is this not a decision that was made behind closed doors, it was out in the public. You could rewatch it. You could make fun of it. There's clips every time that Saquon has a great game. There's retweets on X. I mean, it is an unstoppable roller coaster of bad decision-making when it comes to Saquon's performance and how he's not on the Giants anymore. 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, both on massive runs. And in fact, that second touchdown, which I believe was 78 yards, was on the first play from scrimmage of that drive. He is an incredibly explosive player, and we had this debate months ago, way before the season started when Saquon first got acquired by the Philadelphia Eagles. There was the debate, and I forget who was the reporter, said that we should be expecting maybe a CMC type of impact on the Eagles. It's been better. It's been much better because Saquon is more of a one-dimensional running back. He's really good at running the football. He doesn't have CMC's talent in catching the football. But it don't matter. He's still putting up 2,000 yards, and right now I think he's a little over 100 yards away from breaking the all-time rushing record, playoffs and regular season included. And I think because of the fact we just saw the Lions rush for over 200 yards against the Commanders' defense, I think there's a pretty decent shot that Saquon at least gets very, very close to potentially breaking the record in this very next game. And I think that every single game from here until Saquon either retires or goes to a different team, John Mara, like he said, he'll have a lot of sleepless nights. I bet he hasn't slept in 20 weeks. He hasn't had a good night's sleep in 20 weeks. Because basically every single game, Saquon's out there absolutely balling. So,
well, I think that Saquon Barkley, many people predicted he'd have a great season. We would among them, and he's had a fantastic season, one for the ages, actually. I worry that it may go for naught, though, because I really wonder whether they can beat the Commanders if Jalen Hurts is a statue out there with the leg injury. And they can tee off on Barkley, and he may be able to beat that. I mean, he's like Superman out there. If he can, more power to him. But that's going to be a very tough game for the Eagles, I think. And it's not like, the Commanders are just down the street, right? They're in Washington, Philadelphia. It's an I-95 battle. They're just going up to Philadelphia for the game. There'll be a lot of Commanders fans in the stands there. It's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it.
What I also think is kind of important is Jalen Hurts broke off for that nice 44-yard touchdown early in the game. I believe it was the first touchdown of the game. But then he ran it 6 more times for only 26 yards. And now he has a leg injury. I really fear his mobility because we saw what he looked like not at 100% last year.
They don't have anybody they can put in, really, after him.
How much you trust Kenny Pickett?
I don't trust him at all.
Nobody should
in a
trust
playoff
Kenny
game,
Pickett.
I don't trust him in a regular season game.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
But I also think it's kind of funny how A.J. Brown already said that the thing the Eagles need to work on is their passing game. He said this weeks ago. Jalen Hurts would have had 100% completion percentage if every single target that went to A.J. Brown was caught. The only incompletions Jalen Hurts had were targeting A.J. Brown. 5 incompletions, 7 targets, 2 catches for A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts only had 5 incompletions in the entire game. Once again, this just adds again to the fact, and I brought it up in the last show, and I hope I have it in front of me here, where Jalen Hurts, I do not, but Jalen Hurts' numbers in his wins, he averages, I think, a little above 130 passing yards per game in his playoff wins. And this just adds to it. He had 126 passing yards in this game, no touchdowns, no picks. Meanwhile, in his losses, he averages over 270 passing yards per game. So this is the formula to win, which is kind of surprising for a $50+ million a year quarterback that you're saying, let's take the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
Let's make him a 100-yard passer in today's NFL. But you could say that when you have Saquon Barkley, a single player running for 200 yards and scoring as well.
He's going to have to do it against the Commanders, or they're not going to win. That's my prediction. And we'll see. I can't wait to talk about that game on Friday.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a 60-second, or actually, let's do a 30-second break. But coming up, who's to blame in the Baltimore game? Is it the Ravens or is it the Bills? Who deserves more of that piece of the pie? As well as head coaching hire. Ben Johnson, couple days after his big-time loss against the Commanders, he's already moving on to greener pastures, or should we say windier pastures out in Chicago. We're going to talk about that right after this quick break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's jump into our next topic of today's show, which is Lamar Jackson again continues his streak of not winning multiple playoff games in a singular season. He falls at the hands of the Buffalo Bills, but it was an interesting game because the first half, it was Lamar Jackson's fault. And in the second half, you can put blame on other people or you can give credit to the Buffalo Bills for capitalizing. But wherever you want to put the blame, wherever you want to put the credit, we're going to debate that in a couple seconds here. But Josh Allen moves again. He finally, the first time since 2020, advances beyond the divisional round, which, funnily enough, the last time he did that was against the Baltimore Ravens back in 2020 when they won 17-3 on a Lamar Jackson pick 6 in that game. So now he goes up against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game while the Baltimore Ravens hang their heads in shame and walk back home to Baltimore. So here's my question to you. Did the Bills win this game, or did the Baltimore Ravens lose this game?
I'd say the Ravens lost this game. My takeaway, Ravens beat themselves as they fail to, in critical moments, against the Bills in the divisional playoff game. And for the Bills end string of 3 straight losses in the divisional round. Josh Allen, it was a complete win. All year, this team has heard we've got no talent. We're too small. We can't stop the run. We're not good enough to compete. We've just played over our heads heads down, and we just put our heads down and worked hard. I'm so proud of our defense. I'm so proud of our special teams and the offense. Allen had 2 TDs on 1-yard run and a 4-yard run. He only had 127 yards passing, 20 yards rushing. The whole offense only had 273 yards total. Ray Davis had a 1-yard score, so it wasn't for the stats. It was pretty meager for the Bills, but the Ravens, they had 176 yards rushing, 416 total yards of offense, but they didn't compensate for the 3 turnovers, an interception by Lamar, a fumble by Lamar, a fumble by Andrews, and Andrews dropping the game-tying 2-point conversion with 1:33 to go. I say the Ravens beat themselves. Jackson drops to 1-5 when committing a turnover in a playoff game. 1-4 in the last 5 divisional playoff games. Jackson 18-25, 254 yards, 2 TDs, an interception and fumble. Bills first team to score 30 passing TDs and 30 rushing TDs in a season. No receiver had more than had 900 yards for them. McDermott said the mindset is what it is all about. These guys played to win, and you find a way. Henry, I think they misused him in this game. I thought the Monken's game, the way he called the game was a mistake. Henry had 16 carries for 84 yards. They rarely used a read option play, which worked so well in the last game. He had 199 yards against the Bills in Week 4, and I think it was predictable. They had him lined up in the I formation. They were going to hand it off to him. I thought they telegraphed what they were going to do. I thought it was a huge mistake. And not to have Henry in there in these critical moments down in the red zone, I think that's a flaw in the Ravens' offensive scheme. When Derrick Henry was with the Tennessee Titans, they had him throwing the ball down in the red zone. Very successfully, by the way. He was a player there, and I think that probably bothers him quite a bit. And it'll be interesting to see what he does next year because he's a free agent, right? He's only signed for 1 year, $8 million. He's going to get a big contract with somebody because he's still got what it takes.
Well, he has 1 more year left with the Ravens. He signed a 2-year deal.
Oh, did he? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know
so
that.
he has 1 more year left. But, I mean, look at how Lamar performed with him compared to without him. I mean, he's put up 4,000 yards and nearly 1,000 rushing yards. And that's actually where I kind of want to start, and I agree with you. The Ravens had 0 design runs for Lamar Jackson. We both, and especially you were high on the read option against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it worked to a charm because TJ Watt bit every single time.
It was obvious.
And they put up no design runs. Against these big-time opponents, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, why do they go away from what they know best?
Yeah, and what got them there?
Lamar Jackson is the biggest playmaker in the NFL. He is the most dynamic football player we've probably ever seen in NFL history. And you have 0 design runs for him? Not only that, Derrick Henry ran it 16 times. And in the second half, he actually started to come to life a little bit. Feed him more. That's their level of success. He averaged 5.3 yards an attempt. Run the football more. He had 16 attempts, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Run the football more. Because guess what? Your players were dropping passes. And in the first half, it was Lamar Jackson's fault. Let's bring up Lamar's turnovers here for everyone to see. Because these were bad. This was not even a pressured throw. This was completely, I would say, relatively clean pocket. You could blame Rashad Bateman all you want. I don't really care.
Did he
it was
run
a
the
bad
wrong
throw.
route, do you think? I don't know.
Supposedly. I mean, who knows what the actual route was supposed to be.
They weren't on the same page, that's for sure.
Exactly. They at least were not on the same page. Lamar Jackson thought one thing, and this fumble.
How could he do that?
Crucial situation. Von Miller nearly returns that back for a fumble return touchdown. Von Miller we're talking about, who's had minimal impact since he came over to Buffalo, comes up big in that moment. You can't let that happen. Also, speaking about the play calling, let's talk about both 2-point conversions, and you'll see a pattern here. It's along the same line as where the hell is Derrick Henry?
Where is Derrick Henry?
I'll give you where he is. He's out in receiving land.
Yeah.
Why? He's a 250-pound running back at 6'1". You need 4 guys to tackle him, and guess what? You could push. Why not hand the ball off? It's 2 yards. It's 2 measly yards. Run the damn ball. Instead, you pass the football.
Yeah. Well,
twice.
they should have gotten the first one if it hadn't been tipped. He should have lobbed it a little bit more. Right? Look. It's right there. He's wide open.
And this one, obviously.
Look, it's wide open. And that one, Mark Andrews never going to forget that.
Not only that, let's bring up the Mark Andrews fumble.
The fans aren't going to forget it either.
Let's bring up the Mark Andrews fumble because I have a little bit of faith in Mark Andrews. I don't fully blame him. I think this is a better play than it is a fumble. I put this on Bernard. He insane fumble. Forced fumble, he punched it out.
Yeah, but
that's not really Mark Andrews' fault. That's just a great play on the football.
Yeah.
So I don't completely fault him for that. I would just say it's a hell of a play. Open field, and I mentioned to you even before the show, I said that was a Brandon Cooks in the Super Bowl play, where Brandon Cooks had a good catch, and then instead of running upfield, he runs directly into a defender, gets laid out, gets knocked out for the entire game.
Well,
the only difference is, though, Brandon Cooks somehow, even being knocked out, still held on to the football.
Yeah, well,
Mark Andrews did.
That fumble by Andrews led to 2 timeouts being burned, a field goal, and an 8-point lead with only 3:27 left to go. And I would say also that Bass kicked 2 field goals, one a 51-yarder and not such great weather, and a short field goal to extend the lead to 8 points. And the turnover and the points off turnovers by the Bills, 10 points. And the Ravens wound up losing by 2. You blew it. You blew it. It was on you. You lost that game. It's on you. The Ravens should never have lost that game.
I would say the first half, it has to be on Lamar. You have 2 turnovers when it mattered. You have a horrible interception. Then you fumble it away. I mean,
he made a great drive at the end, but hey, you're behind.
Right.
There's no reason you should have been in that situation. You should never have been in that situation.
I'll also throw this out here, and I haven't seen this. If you didn't go for 2 when it was 21-19, you didn't need a 2-point conversion there. Kicking an extra point would have tied the game up.
Yeah.
Instead, you decided to jump the gun and try to time immediately instead of playing the long game when you were doing a perfectly fine job at moving the football. Just the turnovers and the scoring was the issue. You tried to jump the gun.
Questionable coaching calls there and play calling as well.
I would have kicked the field goal. I'm only down by 1 point. I could still win on a field goal. I could still win on a touchdown. Making it tied or down by 1 point when it's what? The game is still very much in play. I think there was halfway through the third quarter or around there when they scored to make it 19-21. So you could have kicked the extra point. I understand obviously why you went for 2. You wanted to tie the game up, not knowing what would obviously happen later.
Well, when you're behind by 8 points with only 3 minutes to go, you got to have everything work right, exactly right, and it didn't. And you could predict it, that not everything's going to go exactly right. The game is played over the whole 60 minutes, and the Ravens weren't there for the whole 60 minutes. They were absent-minded for a good chunk of it.
I'll also say, people talk about that Mark Andrews drop in the game. That was a poorly thrown, not the 2-point conversion, not that one, the other drop. That was way behind him.
Yeah.
He needed to turn around in slippery, snowy weather where everybody was dropping and fumbling.
The Derrick Henry drop was not a very good pass either.
It was behind him as well. Yeah. There was also an overthrow deep shot. Again, Lamar Jackson gets antsy. He gets uncomfortable. Todd Monken changes their identity in the game. You have Lamar Jackson, who is the most dynamic football player in the NFL. And quickly, let's remind the audience, how many design runs? 0.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the AFC Championship game last year. You run the ball with your running backs 6 times. Yeah. Run the football.
Well, they got away from the formula that we've said always wins for them. Jackson was under 30 passes,
Derrick
which
Henry.
is fine, but Derrick Henry only 16 carries for 84 yards. No designed runs. I thought they had a very poor game plan. They beat themselves.
I completely agree. All right, let's get into some different news. Let's go outside of the games and let's go into coaching news because after their loss against the Commanders, it looks like we already have a domino that fell for Detroit, losing their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who he signed with the Chicago Bears as of today. It's a big signing after firing Matt Eberflus, which, by the way, was their first mid-season coaching fire, I think in their franchise's history, which is crazy to believe. Ben Johnson will be their next head coach. No, you were 100% right, by the way. The Bears went 4-13 like you predicted, and that's crazy to say.
No, they went 5.
5 and 12. Excuse me. 5.
Yeah.
They should have went 4-13.
I said 5 and 12.
Right, you said 5. You absolutely killed on
It should have been
on TikTok.
4-13. I mean, the last game was a gimme.
Jordan Love got hurt in that game. It was bad. Receivers went down. Whatever the case may be. But you go over to a team filled with Rome Odunze. You got Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, a pretty good defense. There is some glaring holes in that team, for instance, the offensive line. But you do hire probably the top remaining candidate in this head coaching carousel. So here's my question to you. How would you grade this hire, and overall, what's your reaction to Ben Johnson becoming the next head coach of the Chicago Bears?
I give it a high grade. I mean, I'm not so sure that I would have made that choice. I think that the way the Bears have been managing their organization the last 10 years with 7 different head coaches since their last playoff game in 2010, that they might have gone for a more experienced coach. Mike McCarthy was out there. He would have given them a lot of stability. Instead, they're going with Ben Johnson, and I think the whole reason they're going with him is because of his offensive prowess, right? His top 5 scoring with the Lions the past 3 years, 5th in 22 and 23, first in 2024 with 33.2 points per game. The Bears hired him with the goal of maximizing Caleb Williams' potential. Williams set franchise passing records for them, but lost 10 straight games. So they want Johnson to come in and they say to stabilize their coaching ranks, but Johnson doesn't have any experience as a head coach. That could be somewhat of an issue. As I said, the Bears have hired 7 head coaches, including interim coaches since their last playoff win in 2010. The only team without a divisional playoff appearance in the last 10 years. I think they hired Johnson because they realized they can't afford to waste the most pivotal years for developing Williams and winning with him on his rookie contract. So nailing this hire with the biggest and best name available was a priority for them. This decision could set the trajectory over the next 15 to 20 years if Johnson can do well. They interviewed a wide list of potential candidates, those with coaching experience: Vrabel, Carroll, McCarthy, Rivera. They highly regarded coordinators: Flores, Monken, and Brady. College coaches: Stanford coach Shaw, Tennessee Eddie George, which surprised a lot of people. Johnson's name was always at the top of the list. I think they went out and got him the day he was available because Las Vegas and Jacksonville also had their eyes on him. The Bears hire him on the first day of availability. They're stressing that the plan to develop Williams was most important. The way he developed Goff, Johnson, the way he developed Goff was a big factor, I think. The QBR in the 51 regular season starts was his best under any of his 6 head coaches. He had 4,000 passing yards in each season under Johnson. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer. I think they'll go with more timing throws off of play action, develop Williams' ability to be more rhythmic in the pocket, and maximize his ability to create and throw on the run. As a first-time coach, I think Johnson will look to add experienced coaches to the staff, such as former Saints head coach Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator. I think there's positive feedback from around the league as Johnson was highly regarded as a play designer and a play caller and has leadership qualities. Williams is going to be on his 4th OC already in his first year. He had 4 offensive coordinators, 3, and this will be his 4th. Lions have one of the best O-lines in the league and a great coach in Fraley, their offensive line coach. The Bears O-line needs a lot of work. The players' comments, they say Ben Johnson, he's very intense. He treats the practices like it's a game. And the Bears also have the number 10 pick in this draft. They probably should pick an offensive lineman to protect Williams, who was sacked the most of any player in the league this year. They could use a speed receiver as well, but maybe they'll just go with the best player available, given the holes that they have elsewhere on the team. They have 2 early second-round picks too, so it looks like they could improve their team quite a bit more, and they have a new mind there, an offensive mind instead of a defensive coach, which they've had defensive guys in the past number of years. Overall, I give it that A plus higher. He learned under Campbell, who was a great players coach with a great aptitude for in-game decision making. He has success in creative, explosive offenses. He participated in Detroit's rebuild through the draft. He has the skills to draw the best out of Williams. So I think it's a good choice. We'll have to see, though. It's playing in a very tough division. There are a lot of playoff teams coming out of that division this year. You had all 3 of the other teams made the playoffs, and they're all going to be probably as strong or maybe even stronger next year. So he's got his work cut out for him.
Well, I wouldn't give it an AA plus. I would go probably B plus A minus because this is going to be a very difficult job. And the Chicago Bears posted a video of Ben Johnson sort of introducing himself and saying, some very nice things, and that's a good sign. But this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 14 years. They've made the playoffs twice and have had 2 winning records during that 14-year span. They had sort of a projection to make in a lot of people's eyes, make the playoffs this year with Caleb Williams just based on the amount of roster talent they had. They had the number 1 overall pick, who was, again, I don't agree with it, but called a generational talent, a DeAndre Swift coming off of a great season with the Eagles, DJ Moore, very respected wide receiver, Keenan Allen, again, another respected wide receiver, Roma Dunze, a budding prospect in college and then entering the NFL. He's supposed to be very good. Cole Kmet, again, respectable tight end. I like Cole Kmet a lot. I thought the Patriots should have drafted him years ago. Also, their offensive line, that was the issue, though. And Ben Johnson did have a great system, and here are the numbers as the OC of the Detroit Lions. He's basically first in everything when it comes to points per game, total yards per game, passing yards per game, rushing yards per game is 7th. Rushing TDs, though, he was 2nd, and then red zone percentage, the Lions scored on 2/3 of their red zone trips. So the offense, because of the talent level, was incredible. You had the number 1 offensive line in the NFL. You had the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. And David Montgomery, I know Jahmyr Gibbs only been there a couple seasons, but that first year, it was still a pretty decent running scheme. And then once Jahmyr Gibbs got there and David Montgomery did his thing, by the way, I'm sure the Bears would love to have Montgomery back at this point. He was kind of just a pushover. I had him on fantasy a couple years. He was kind of just like an okay guy, and then he goes to the Detroit Lions, and it's like, oh my God, he's part of the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. So I expect them to be around what I thought they would be around 7-10, 8-9. I don't know if you want to give out a crazy prediction on January 21st, but maybe we'll save it for June like we did last year. But who knows? Maybe you want to throw out a prediction right now.
I think they'll be better than this year, and that won't be too hard to do, right? They only won 5 games. They were lucky to do that. They lost 10 in a row. I don't think that's going to happen. This guy's a very intense guy. He's a very smart guy. He's young. He's hungry. He's getting his chance. He learned a lot from Dan Campbell. He's got some good players. Caleb Williams, potentially one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The defense, pretty serviceable. He gets a good defensive coordinator there. Maybe he'll get Dennis Allen from the Saints' former head coach. They need to work on the offensive line. They can they got plenty of cap space and they got a lot of draft picks. So they should be able to improve the team if they manage it better and they keep the head office away from them, and so they can do their thing. Then I do think they'll win more than 5. Maybe I'm with you, 7 or 8. I think they're just in such a tough division.
Yeah.
That it's going to be hard to do better than splitting with the other 3 teams in the division, and that you play those guys, that's going to be 6 games right there. So that's 3-3, and then you play outside the division. It's going to be challenging too. So I don't see him making the playoffs, but I do see him improving.
Let's just do a hypothetical. Obviously, things are going to change in the upcoming months, but let's just say, remove Eberflus, insert Ben Johnson. And let's just say the Lions, they hire whoever they want to hire, and I don't know how big of an impact that will be. What's the Bears' division record next year? If I know things are going to change, but if you take all the current rosters as they currently stand and just take out Eberflus, take out Thomas Brown, and insert Ben Johnson instead, what's their division record?
I think best case 3-3.
They go 500 next year.
And that's best case. I think that'll be very hard to do. I mean, what was their division record this year? Did they win 1 game in the division?
I'll tell you that in 2 seconds. So they ended up losing to the Packers once. Well, that's 1-1 with the Packers. They got swept by the Vikings, and they got swept by Detroit.
Yeah.
1-5.
1-5. So if they got to 3-3, that would be considered a huge victory.
And you know what? It wouldn't shock me if they take 1 away from Detroit.
Yeah,
and Johnson
me too.
knows the
I
offense.
think the Lions are questionable now with they're going to be better on defense for sure next year. They'll get players back, but they're going to lose Aaron Glenn. He's going to wind up with the Jets, I guess. And now Ben Johnson's with the Bears. So, and the Bears, what are the Lions going to do? Ben Johnson knows all their players intimately.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to have a great scheme for them.
You would assume so. It's just a question of how will they perform. Will Dan Campbell just go blitz happy and make Caleb Williams uncomfortable?
I think Dan Campbell's in a tough situation now. He may have peaked. I think 15 wins may be the top for him. I don't know. I don't see him doing better than that, particularly losing those guys. This was his year.
Yeah.
This was their year. I think it's going to be very hard for them going forward.
Now, there was a question of, did the Lions' Super Bowl window close?
It might have.
I would obviously, we would really need to see.
Not the playoff window, but
not the playoff window.
The Super Bowl window, perhaps. I mean, they got to find a great offensive coordinator. Are they going to be able to replace Ben Johnson with somebody equally talented? I doubt it.
Well, that's very difficult to do.
Yeah, and the defensive coordinator, I mean, Aaron Glenn, I'm not so sure. I mean, he did very well when all the players are injured. He still managed to have the defense play well.
Except
but the Jets want him badly. He used to play for the Jets. And he was on their coaching staff way back there, too. They really want him badly. And I'm a little surprised that they go with another defensive coach. But that's where they're headed. And I don't know if it's been called yet. They said they weren't going to let him leave.
It has not been called.
They wouldn't let him leave today. So maybe they got him locked up in an office somewhere there and won't let him go until he says, I'm going to play for you. Coach for you.
Well, I'll say this. And we actually talked about when Doug Peterson got fired. There were sort of rumors that teams wouldn't want to come over to Jacksonville because they kept their GM Trent Baalke. Reporting Diana Rossini, Ben Johnson turned down the Jaguars head coaching gig because he wasn't interested in their setup. Trent Baalke.
Interesting that he likes the Bears setup. I think they're one of the most
what's the power structure?
Dysfunctional power structures in the NFL.
Are you reporting to Kevin Warren or are you reporting to George McCaskey? Who are you reporting to?
And Ray... What's Pohl?
Ryan Pohl.
Ryan Pohl. He's
Who are you
not
going to
happy.
report to?
He said he's not happy with the way it's set up there.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, they're probably pretty happy they got Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
I heard they gave
candidate.
him a ton of money. I didn't hear what the contract was.
I don't think the coaches
they made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
I would agree with that as well. I mean, to go over to Chicago and let's say they do win 8 games, that would be the most amount of wins they have since 2020. Does that get you a playoff appearance in the NFC? Because I guarantee it's not going to do it in the AFC.
Not 8 wins. That's a losing record.
Right.
8 and 9. You got to be at least 9 and 8 to have any kind of a chance, I think.
Well, because we know for sure 8 and 9's not getting you a playoff appearance in the AFC. With the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, by the way, who had the most poor throws in the NFL this past year,
Well, what did the seven
Caleb
seed,
Williams get fixed?
The 7 seed had a 10-7 record this year.
10-7 in the AFC.
10-7 in the NFC,
10
right?
no, 11-6 in the
11-6
NFC.
with the Green Bay, right?
Yeah, Green Bay Packers. Yeah,
so
because their division had a 15-2,
8-9 ain't
14-3,
gonna come
11-6.
close. 9-8 probably won't do it either.
It's going to be very, very difficult for Ben Johnson to turn around a team that has a losing culture, and you're the first time. That's why I thought Mike Vrabel and Mike McCarthy was apparently a finalist here. I thought that the best course of action would be to get an established head coach who knows a thing or two about head coaching the NFL, not a first-year guy, because you don't know how to fix problems.
They're gambling on the synergy between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. They're going to try.
Well, you're banking on synergy. I would have targeted Cliff Kingsbury.
On making Caleb Williams the best quarterback in the NFL.
That's going to be near impossible.
That's what they're banking on.
Maybe best rookie in his class. Let's start there.
He's not a rookie anymore. He's got 1 year of experience.
Right, but I would start with at least the best quarterback in your draft class because Jaden Daniels had you beat by a large
right
margin.
Now, I don't know if you'll ever catch him.
I mean, I would say that if he was
Jalen Daniels stays healthy and continues to perform the way he is, he's a generational quarterback.
Would you put Jaden Daniels in your top 10 quarterbacks right now?
Yes.
I would agree with that. I think the question is he a top 5 quarterback right now?
Close.
I'm sure
he wins the game on Sunday, yes. Yeah,
I would agree with you.
And he has a good game. I mean, he's the reason.
I mean, I'm curious. When's the last time Jaden Daniels had a bad game? Because, I mean, we've seen Caleb Williams put up duds of games.
Yeah, well, he had some games where he was playing hurt, and he didn't do so well.
Okay, so how do you classify dud game?
For him, it would be
bad game.
For him, anything, with, a little over 60% completion percentage, less than a couple touchdowns, and less than 60 yards running. I'd say that would be it. And less than 200 yards passing. Did he have any games like that?
Okay, so the game that is basically as close as you possibly can get to that was their 1-point loss against Pittsburgh. 50% completion percentage, 202 passing yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 3 carries, 5 yards.
Yeah, so that was a poor game.
That's it.
Yeah.
The one that he at least stayed healthy in, I should say.
Yeah.
Let's classify it, because he did get hurt in a couple of these games. He only had 2 attempts against Carolina and 12 attempts against Dallas.
I'm torn in this game on Sunday. I love Saquon Barkley. We have his
signed jersey
hanging up behind us. It's a Giants jersey, but and I love Jalen Daniels too. What he's done is amazing, and it's going to be quite a game.
It should be a good conversation on Friday when we make our picks.
Yeah.
Championship
and even
game.
better the following Tuesday when we find out who won.
Yeah, I think that'll be a hell of a conversation, but you do have to wait till Friday and then Tuesday to see our picks and our reaction and breakdown for those games. But I believe that wraps up today's show of the Harvey Hour. This is officially the longest show.
A marathon, over 2 hours.
No, it's the second longest show. Last December, we did a near 2.5-hour show.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, we appreciate everyone who stopped by, watched this. Thank you, Nick, for taking time out of your evening to have a nice conversation with me and our discussion on Eli Manning. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer or not?
We'll find out soon enough.
Apologize for the technical difficulties. Thanks, Zoom, for taking away,
Thanks to Dad Zoom, we made it back.
Yeah, appreciate that. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's been Stephen Harvey. We have been the coach of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday. We're going to make our NFC Championship and AFC Championship picks on Friday's show. So be here, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get